There are tons of conspiracy theories out there that initially appear credible, but are often dismissed by authorities or experts. However, when some of these theories are later proven to be true, it leads us to question the validity of official narratives and the motivations behind them. In this video, we'll be exploring 5 conspiracy theories that we were told were fake, but actually turned out to be true. Now, if you enjoy this type of content, you'll love a video we uploaded on Patreon last week titled 5 Conspiracy Theories That Would Get Us Banned from YouTube. Now, we cannot share exactly what we talked about in that video for fear of this video being demonetized, but you can check that video out for free by clicking on the link in the description or comment section below. Now, if you haven't already done so, grab your tinfoil hat, lock the doors, hit those lights, and enjoy. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. On March 20th, 2003, President George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney launched a war against Iraq, alongside a coalition of allies, including the United Kingdom, Australia, and Poland. They claimed that Iraq dictator Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction that posed a direct threat to the United States. They also asserted that Hussein had connections with Al-Qaeda, the group responsible for the September 11th attacks, or so we were told. In the wake of 9/11, American citizens were eager to get justice for the atrocities and believed what the president was telling them. His claim was backed up by the Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld, who said he had bulletproof evidence linking Saddam to Osama bin Laden, while Vice President Dick Cheney insisted there was a long-standing relationship between them. Cheney also claimed there was very clear evidence of nuclear weapon development, referring to aluminium tubes that were purportedly intended for uranium enrichment. Condoleezza Rice, the US Secretary of State at the time, supported this assertion, but failed to mention that leading scientific experts disagreed, concluding that the tubes were unsuitable for that purpose. Furthermore, Bush claimed that Saddam Hussein had a massive stockpile of biological weapons. These scare tactics convinced the public that invading Iraq was the right thing to do. The military campaign quickly led to the dismantling of Hussein's regime, with major cities, including Baghdad, coming under coalition control. And within weeks, US Marines assisted Iraq civilians in destroying a large statue of Hussein in Firdos Square, Baghdad. This statue was one of many erected to celebrate Hussein's rule and was viewed as a symbol of his oppressive regime. The destruction of the statue was seen as a sign marking the end of his rule. However, this quick military victory was soon overshadowed by a long and violent insurgency. Various groups, mainly Sunni and Sahi, fought for power in the newly liberated country, leading to civil unrest and acts of terrorism. Coalition forces struggled to stabilize Iraq and create a functioning democratic government. The rise of extremist groups, especially the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, made the situation worse. These groups exploited the power vacuum and the unhappiness of the people. The Iraq War had profound consequences, resulting in significant loss of life and human suffering. An estimated 150,000 people died, including over 100,000 civilians, largely due to the sectarian civil war following Saddam Hussein's fall. Troops were not withdrawn from Iraq until 2011 under President Obama. But the most shocking aspect of the Iraq War was that it was fueled by misleading information and baseless claims from President Bush and Vice President Cheney. It was ultimately concluded that no significant weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq. The intelligence assessments suggest that Iraq possessed WMDs were produced under pressure from the Bush administration and were frequently challenged by intelligence experts and UN inspectors. Despite being aware of the doubts surrounding the evidence, President Bush, Vice President Cheney, and their key aides exaggerated the threat in order to justify the war. As a result, they misled the public. The war resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths and damaged the United States' international reputation. UK Prime Minister Tony Blair's support for the war also led to a decline in his popularity and his resignation in 2007. Today, more than 2 decades later, Iraq continues to suffer from the consequences of the invasion. The war was grossly misrepresented, and despite its original intentions, misleading tactics were used to gain public support. This approach showed a reckless disregard for the truth, relying on falsehoods designed to incite fear rather than encouraging informed public discussion. As a result, the American public, along with the nations that supported the war, has developed a deep mistrust of the information provided by their governments. Bohemian Grove is real. For many years, Bohemian Grove was so secretive that many believed it was a figment of the imagination. Rumors of strange rituals and elite members gave rise to numerous conspiracy theories and public speculation. However, in recent years, more has been learned about the elusive club, confirming that the speculation regarding this private, male-only club is indeed true. The Bohemian Grove was established in 1872, originated in San Francisco as a social and artistic gathering for journalists, artists, and musicians, with the renowned author Mark Twain among its early members. 6 years after its founding, the club began a 2-week encampment at Bohemian Grove, a sprawling 2,700-acre wooded retreat located in the picturesque redwood forests of Northern California, and what started as a farewell celebration for an actor relocating to New York City has since evolved into a well-known summer tradition shrouded in secrecy. The exclusive all-male club only welcomes the wealthiest and most influential figures, and the names of its members are kept strictly confidential. This secrecy has led to various questions about what truly occurs behind closed doors at Bohemian Grove, and although the club claims that business discussions are strictly prohibited, reports suggest that some of America's most powerful men have engaged in deal-making and networking amid a curious mix of performances and rituals at the 150-year-old retreat. The Bohemians, as they are known, are often accused of being a secret Illuminati guild that makes global decisions, such as manipulating interest rates and choosing political candidates, and at their annual gathering at the Bohemian Grove, they perform unusual rituals, including mock human sacrifices to the pagan god Moloch. The ceremony, known as the Cremation of Care, features a dramatic play involving robed figures burning a coffin before a large cement owl. The coffin symbolizes dull care, originating from a 1919 Oliver Hardy short film where the police prefer laziness over pursuing criminals. Participants are invited to symbolically cast their daily worries onto the pyre as part of the ceremony. It all seems a bit strange for some of the most powerful men in the world to be participating in such activities. While over the years, some names have been leaked, offering the public a glimpse into its elite roster. Notable figures include past US presidents such as Herbert Hoover, Ronald Reagan, and Richard Nixon, along with a mixed array of celebrated writers, actors, and prominent business and world leaders. Perhaps the most significant historical event linked to Bohemian Grove occurred in 1942, when a covert meeting regarding the Manhattan Project took place at the encampment, ultimately contributing to the development of the atomic bomb. Numerous journalists have tried to infiltrate the encampment to uncover the secretive activities that occur there, and in 2000, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones managed to gain access to the grove and recorded a ritual involving the burning of an effigy. He later presented this footage in a controversial documentary filled with alarming claims about shameful plots and human sacrifices. The elite club does exist and is no longer just a conspiracy theory. However, what actually goes on is still up for debate. Big Pharma invented heroin. In 1897, Felix Hoffmann, a chemist at Bayer, a prominent German pharmaceutical company, developed a method to chemically modify salicylic acid, which is derived from willow bark, to create a more tolerable and effective analgesic known as aspirin. Despite its potential benefits, aspirin initially faced skepticism, and early studies raised concerns about its safety and possible cardiovascular risks. In response to this doubt, Bayer shifted its focus to a newly discovered substance called heroin. Early clinical trials revealed that heroin produced profound feelings of euphoria and increased vitality, aptly reflected in its name, which is derived from the German word heroisch, meaning heroic. Researchers were captivated by heroin's chemical structure, noting that its potency was approximately 4 times greater than that of morphine, and initial claims suggested that it significantly reduced the risk of addiction, positioning it as a safer alternative for pain management than aspirin. In 1898, heroin entered the medical market as a revolutionary cough medicine, initially prescribed by a select group of physicians in Germany. It was marketed as being 10 times more effective than codeine, while boasting dramatically reduced toxicity, offering hope during a period rife with infectious diseases, such as tuberculosis and pneumonia. The relentless coughing associated with these ailments created a pressing need for effective cough suppressants, and heroin's sedative properties and ability to act as a powerful respiratory depressant provided substantial relief for afflicted patients. By 1899, Bayer was producing about 1 ton of heroin annually, distributing it across 23 countries worldwide. The American market in particular quickly embraced this drug, especially since many individuals were already battling morphine addiction, and the regulatory framework surrounding drug sales was relatively lax. Bayer started aggressively marketing this potent drug as a cure for various ailments, including common colds, persistent coughs, asthma, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, stomach cancer, and even schizophrenia. Bayer was not alone in promoting dubious products as miraculous cures during this period, and in a particularly shocking marketing strategy, the company advertised heroin as safe for children, allowing anyone over the age of 18 to purchase it freely. Heroin was available in multiple forms, including lozenges, tablets, and medicinal elixirs, making it a common fixture in households. However, by 1902, the tide began to turn, as researchers in both the United States and Europe documented alarming cases of addiction to the drug, and as reports of addiction increased, Bayer was compelled to halt heroin production in 1913. However, by this point it was too late. Criminals quickly recognized that heroin was a powerful narcotic that produced stronger effects than morphine. As addiction progressed, users often resorted to injecting larger doses to experience the drug's effects again. Today, heroin addiction is a global issue, most prevalent in the United States, as well as in Egypt and China. Unfortunately, by the time the dangers were recognized, addiction had taken hold, and the drug eventually transferred to the black market, where it remains to this day. Aspirin is the most widely used legal drug in history, known for its ability to relieve pain and reduce inflammation. In stark contrast, heroin has become infamous as one of the most common illegal substances linked to addiction, death, and societal decline. Bill Gates was very close to Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who allegedly died by suicide in prison, attracted a notable circle of wealthy and influential individuals, including billionaires like Leslie Wexner and Leon Black, politicians such as Bill Clinton and Bill Richardson, and even Queen Elizabeth II's son, Prince Andrew. However, as expected, many of these figures are now trying to distance themselves from Epstein. But for Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft and one of the world's richest individuals, it is more challenging to deny his ties to Epstein, especially since Gates began meeting with him after he had been convicted of sex crimes. Like Epstein's other associates, Gates has sought to downplay the extent of his relationship with the convicted sex offender, stating, "I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him," although it now seems that his relationship with Epstein was more than a casual acquaintance and may have led to the end of his 27-year marriage to Melinda. Gates and Epstein first met on January 31, 2011 at Epstein's townhouse, along with Dr. Eva Anderson Dublin and her 15-year-old daughter. The gathering lasted several hours, and Epstein later boasted about the meeting in emails, stating Bill's great. Gates returned the praise in an email noting Epstein's charm. They subsequently met again at a TED conference in Long Beach, California. On May 3, 2011, Gates visited Epstein at his New York mansion. A photo from that meeting shows them together. At that time, the Gates Foundation and JP Morgan were launching the Global Health Investment Fund, and Epstein wanted to be involved. Epstein proposed a charitable fund, suggesting he receive 0.3% of the money raised. However, Gates was initially unaware of this fee request. In late 2011, at Gates' request, the foundation met with Epstein, during which he reportedly minimized his solicitation of prostitution from an underage girl, equating it to stealing a bagel. But this didn't seem to stop the dialogue, and in early 2012, a team from the Gates Foundation met with Epstein again at his mansion, where he claimed to have access to trillions of dollars for the proposed fund. This figure raised doubts about his credibility, but despite this, Gates and Epstein continued to meet, including a flight on Epstein's Gulfstream plane in March 2013. In October 2014, Gates donated $2 million to MIT's Media Lab, an action that university officials described as directed by Epstein. However, by late 2014, their relationship appeared to cool after the proposed charitable fund failed to materialize, and Epstein expressed frustration over Gates' lack of communication. Nonetheless, some senior officials at the Gates Foundation maintained contact with Epstein until late 2017. In 2019, Epstein was arrested on federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors, causing his elite friends and associates to deny any knowledge of his crimes. In 2021, after 27 years of marriage, Bill and Melinda Gates announced their decision to divorce. According to the Wall Street Journal, Melinda had been consulting with divorce lawyers since at least October 2019, following the public revelation of Bill's business dealings with convicted sex offender Epstein. It's not clear what Melinda knew about Bill's behavior around Epstein, but his friendship with him, as well as his extramarital affairs, were the final straw. In a final postscript, days before Epstein's suicide in August 2019, he amended his will, naming Boris Nikolic as a fallback executor. Coincidentally, Boris served as chief advisor to Bill Gates. At the time, Boris expressed shock at being named in Epstein's will and stated that he deeply regrets having met him, but that's what they all say. COVID-19 was man-made and came from Wuhan Lab. China knew this and tried to cover it up. In December 2019, a cluster of patients in Wuhan, a Chinese city, began experiencing symptoms of a pneumonia-like illness that did not respond well to standard treatments. This marked the beginning of a global pandemic that ultimately claimed nearly 7 million lives worldwide as the disease quickly spread. Many countries implemented lockdowns, while scientists worked tirelessly to develop a vaccine for the coronavirus named COVID-19. Eventually a vaccine was developed, and life began to slowly return to normal. However, the more we've learned about COVID, the more it seems that we were misled about where the virus came from. I'm sure many of you are aware that at the start of the pandemic, numerous scientists worldwide informed the public that the virus originated in a wet market in Wuhan, China. Wet markets in China typically sell a wide variety of wildlife for human consumption, including animals such as marmots, raccoon dogs, and badgers, along with various wild birds and reptiles. These animals often endure poor welfare and unsanitary conditions, and are frequently butchered on site in environments lacking proper hygiene. Scientists explain that the virus was transmitted from bats to these animals, with a likely intermediate host being the pangolin, and through the handling and consumption of this wildlife, the virus was transferred to humans. This explanation seems credible. Even we fell for it, especially after videos of the conditions in those markets were shared all around the world. However, speculation began to grow regarding a potential, more plausible origin for the virus, when it was revealed that Wuhan was home to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a research facility that had been conducting extensive studies on coronaviruses since 2005. The institute was also known for creating hybrid viruses by combining a bat coronavirus with a modified SARS virus capable of infecting human cells. But despite the suspicions and conspiracy theories surrounding the institute, officials consistently denied that the virus had leaked from the lab, still insisting that the wet market was the source. Fast forward to 2025, all inquiries related to the COVID-19 panic have now been completed. It's been revealed that the wet market was ruled out as a potential origin in 2020 because animal samples collected from there tested negative, and it's now widely believed, although not officially confirmed, that COVID-19 leaked from the Wuhan Institute, and that the Chinese government was aware of this but attempted to cover it up. But that was not the only matter they sought to suppress. They also tried to silence those in China who spoke out about the virus when it first began to spread in Wuhan. On December 30th, 2019, an ophthalmologist at Wuhan Central Hospital alerted his medical school contacts via WeChat about a patient who had tested positive for the SARS coronavirus. He noted that 7 other patients exhibited similar symptoms. Screenshots of his warnings spread online, resulting in his manager reprimanding him, and just 4 days later, Lee was detained by police for spreading false rumors and was forced to sign a statement acknowledging his actions. On January 7th, Lee contracted the virus and was hospitalized, and despite his condition, he continued to speak out against misinformation, highlighting inconsistencies in the government's statements. Tragically, he died on February 14, 2020, at the age of just 33. His death prompted global mourning and criticism of the authorities for silencing early warnings, with the Supreme People's Court stating that listening to such rumors could have mitigated the outbreak. Several Chinese whistleblowers also took significant risks to report on the situation. Fang Bin, a businessman, used YouTube and WeChat to share images of Wuhan as the crisis unfolded. Quen Chishi, a lawyer, activist, and citizen journalist, also reported on the COVID-19 pandemic while criticizing the government's response. Zhang Zan, a former lawyer and citizen journalist, reported on the impact of the lockdown measures imposed in the city due to the outbreak and questioned the authorities' handling of the crisis. All three, along with many others, were arrested. Chen Qiushi disappeared but has since been located, while Fang Bing and Zhang Zhen were both imprisoned. But it wasn't just China that was monitoring social media during the COVID-19 pandemic. It seems the UK were also monitoring personal accounts. A Freedom of Information disclosure revealed that in 2020, members of the British Army's 77 Brigade were deployed within the UK during the pandemic to monitor online discussions about the pandemic. Originally established in 2015 to combat international online propaganda, the brigade's mission appears to have shifted towards monitoring British citizens. The Freedom of Information Act, published in November 2024, indicates that the brigade tracked UK social media posts to identify disinformation trends about COVID-19. Operation Rescript was the military's initiative to assist with COVID-19 response efforts, and although officials claimed the brigade's focus was international, evidence suggests that they were lied to and they were also engaged in domestic surveillance. Documents reveal that Force Element soldiers were deployed for 6 months at various locations across the UK to monitor media interactions. Their aim was to support the UK's ability to counter COVID-19 threats. Concerns intensified after a whistleblower alleged that the brigade monitored the personal social media account of UK citizens, including journalists. This contradicts the Ministry of Defence's official narrative that the brigade operates only internationally, and again reveals that the public were lied to during the pandemic. So that's enough conspiracies for one day. Let us know what you think of these, and let us know below if you have other conspiracies that many people laugh at that you believe are true. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.